It's a real pleasure to be here. Is anybody, we run the Virginia Public Access Project known as vpap. Are people familiar with our website, vpap.org? All right, a few of you. Well, great. Opportunity to introduce you and tell you what we do. We're gonna, Jared and I are going to walk you through our website a little bit, and then we'll be glad to answer any questions you might have. vpap is a non-profit, non-partisan group, and if you know anything about Virginia politics, I know we just finished the BRAC campaign. That's a federal election, but in a state and local election, Virginia is one of the few states with no limits on campaign donations. If you were going to run for sheriff, I could write you $1 million check, and in most states that would be illegal. But Virginia takes a different approach. Virginia, instead of trying to put rules and regulations and say, well, you can only give this much and so forth, and these kind of groups can't give, Virginia takes the approach that as long as you disclose who your donors are, people can decide for themselves if you're representing them or your donors. You know, that was the theory. In practice in Virginia, what was happening was the candidates, of course, could take $1 million if they wanted to. No one was really given $1 million, but they were taking unlimited donations, and they were disclosing who their donors were. Anybody who gives more than $100, but those documents were just kind of sitting in file cabinets in Richmond, and there was no way for anybody in this room to try to figure out, you know, who was given to whom. You know, the idea was that politicians would kind of police themselves if they knew you could find out what was going on. So what vpap, you know, there was a problem with the theory. In practice, no one knew. So what we did is we took the information. Welcome, come on in. I'm just getting started. We took the information that was in these documents about where the candidates are getting the money. We put them into a computer database and put them online. So now anybody can go and find out who's giving money to whom. So that's what we do. Our goal, we don't have a dog in any fight. We have, if this is a continuum, this is the most liberal person and this is the most conservative person, we have donors and supporters all along that continuum. Because the people that know and use us, I mean, Bob Bailey is a big supporter of what we do. He knows that we don't have a dog in the fight. We're just trying to let people understand what's happening. We want to bring transparency to problems by amount. I know you can't read it from there, but Jared, you want to forward it? You can. Yeah. Next page, please. Yeah. All right. And then you can also, what you can see is this is a list of by occupation. He had political donors at the top, single interest groups, finance, organized labor, so forth. So what we do is we determine what their occupations are. The next, you click through to healthcare. You can find out again where the money came from: hospitals, pharmaceuticals, so forth. Then you can click on, it says $200 and something thousand from hospitals that he got. You can click on that and find out who was that. And you can find out it was hospital chains. The hospital association gave $54,000. You can click on the hospital association and then find out when they gave the money, how much, and so forth. So that's kind of. Then you can click on the donor's name, the hospital association, and find out who else they gave to. And you can find out the bar chart, the red and blue, shows how much money they give the Democrats or Republicans. So this kind of help you understand who is giving to whom. Here's Ryan McDougall's page, your local state senator. What we want to show you here is at the bottom of every candidate's page, there's newspaper headlines about the
any news that we can pass around. And basically what it is every morning we put together a compilation of newspaper articles from around the state. You get just a headline and a short excerpt from the beginning, and we look at large and small papers from all over the state. And we put that together and get it to you by about 7:20 every morning. And it's a great way to kind of go through and quickly get all the Virginia news, get up to speed without having to read 50 different newspaper articles. So that's an example of the article, what it looks like. So it's 100% free. So if you're interested in signing up for that, I can pass a sign-up sheet around as well. And
we don't sell our list or give our list away. There's more. Right now we have 5,700 people around Virginia who use this as a resource. So, anybody read VA News? You read VA News?
Well, I just want to ask you, Is it just that blurb, or is it a complete
It's,
article?
well, it's what it is each article has a headline in the paper, so you can kind of determine, oh, well, that's the Washington Post, or oh, that's the Washington Times.
And a small, short
And
blurb
this is
about
the
it?
first couple of sentences, and if you want to know the whole story, you click on the headline, and
Oh,
it would take you to the
Big
newspaper.
things that we do, and especially more so lately, is we do infographics and visualizations. We try and take these sort of complex situations and complex pieces of data and present them in ways that people can just look at and sort of get the picture and sort of understand. So, good example here, after the big upset when Dave Bratt beat Eric Cantor, we put together this visualization which just showed what parts of the 7th District really swung the race. So as you can see, the dark green, I don't know if you can read that, the dark green are areas where Bratt received over 65% of the vote.
That's us.
And the dark,
That's Hanover County.
that's right. And the dark brown are areas where Cantor received over 65% of the vote, and then they shade, light to dark. So the lighter areas are the areas that were a little bit more competitive, and the darker areas are areas that were a little bit less competitive. And so you can see Hanover County up there. So this next one we put together recently, we were discussing how the state senate has been competitive in terms of who controls it over the last 20 or so years. But on an individual level, individual state senate seats are much less competitive. And we went back to 1991 to look at how seats had changed parties since 1991. And actually 23 of the 40 seats have been controlled by just one party since 1991. And then as you whittle down, some of them have flipped once, some twice. This next one is I'm sure you've all heard about the 3rd District. The federal panel of judges ruled that the 3rd District had to be redrawn, and so we did a visualization to just show the difference in the composition of the 3rd District and the surrounding districts as far as the demographics go. So you can see the 3rd District's the dark one in the middle there, which is 60% African American, and then the surrounding districts are all much less African American, and so the redrawing of that district could obviously have a pretty heavy impact on the demographics of the surrounding districts. This one we looked at independent expenditures. 2012, when George Allen and Tim Kaine were running against each other for Senate, Virginia was at the top of the list nationally in terms of outside spending. If anybody doesn't know what an independent expenditure is, it's basically an outside group. They can come in, they can spend money on TV and radio ads, and they don't have to disclose their donors as long as they don't coordinate with the campaign. So if you're running for office and I'm a group and I support you, as long as I'm not coordinating what I'm doing with you, I can come in to Virginia and I can put an ad on the air in support of you, and I don't have to say where that money's coming from, basically. And so in 2012, Virginia was the top of the list nationally. There was a lot of money spent. And in 2014, you can see Virginia's way down. I think we're number 17 or 18 on there. And so a lot of people were discussing that, obviously, after last Tuesday night when things ended up being a lot closer than anybody expected. What if the spending had been a little bit higher from the outside groups who thought Mark Warner was going to win pretty easily?
I have a question.
Yes.
Do they have to put a disclaimer on the ad or whatever they do?
You do have to disclose who's paying for the ad. So you've seen them all from the campaigns where they say, I'm so-and-so and I approve this message, and the groups are the same way. You'll have to see who's paying for the ad at the end. But a lot of times you don't really know who the group is. You'll see the name, but you don't know who their donors are, where they're coming from, and it can be pretty...
It might be Americans for All Good Things. Well,
Yeah.
Not sure what that means.
And what is the difference as far as money totals, since I can't see it, since on Virginia?
Yeah, so in 2012, it was 53 million, and in 2014, it was 1.3 million. Now, I will say this was done a couple months back. This was before the campaign was over, so that number did rise, but it did not come anywhere close to the 2012.
I think it was just under 3 million.
Yeah, it was right around 3 million when things were all said and done.
Do you see any evidence of foreign money coming into Virginia, or is it that's still illegal, isn't it?
Of foreign money coming in?
Right. I mean, from outside the United States.
Right.
Foreign donations are illegal, both on federal and donations from foreign individuals and foreign companies. If it is, there's it's not being disclosed, although these groups that don't have to disclose their donors, who's to say who's giving the money,
That's
so.
right, that's right. Was that for both for Democrats and Republicans?
Right.
Yes.
Just for anyone running in the 2012?
Right. That's total spending in the Senate race, either against or for both candidates.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Oh.
What's his name?
So another one of the things that we do is on election night, we do precinct level election tracking. For those of you that are familiar with the site, hopefully you've been there on election night. We have these great maps, and so for the Senate race, we had a map of the whole state, and you can hover over an individual locality, a county, and see what the vote total was in that county, and then you can click on that county, and you can see the vote total in each precinct as it's coming in. So a lot of people, our site is flooded with traffic on election night with people watching the results come in. And so this is just an example of the lieutenant governor's race in 2013. This is what kind of a zoomed in version of the map would look like, and you can see the different precincts are shaded based on how they perform. So the dark red precincts were ones that were heavily Republican. The pinkish light red is Republican, but less so. And then these two dark blue precincts here, Ashland, are both heavily Democratic precincts. And you can see the difference between the lieutenant, all the different districts within Hanover County, and you can click on that election and see who's running, and then you can go to their page and view their donors like you can with any other candidate. And then here we have top donors. So these are the top donors, not from Hanover County, but to these local candidates in Hanover County. So these are the top donors giving to your Board of Supervisors candidates. And then we also have the top industry. So if you're curious, who's getting involved, you've got the real estate. Yes, sir.
The donations was anything under 10,000 was not listed.
No, that's, the 10,000 figure is quite a high figure. That's the threshold for what's called a personal financial interest that elected officials have. So that would be if you were on the supervisors and you were paid more than $10,000 in wages, you'd have to report that. The donation threshold is only more than $100. So if you give a candidate $100, which is a lot of money, I mean, in my wallet, but $100, they don't have to report anything. But as soon as you give more than $100 during the election year, like you gave 50, then you gave 20, then you gave 50 more. Once you trip over 100, they have to report your name, your address, your employer, and occupation. So is that?
Yeah.
So the threshold for donations is much lower.
Is this for all candidates?
That's the threshold in Virginia for a state and local candidate, and a PAC as well.
Just so y'all know, Obama got $1 billion in $100 donation.
Yeah.
The last time he was elected.
And small donations.
Small donation.
Yeah, it's somebody said, who said, you said that Brad, and I know there's a lot of suspicion of, because there's no names attached to them, but it's an interesting trend that's going on right now. There's a lot of billionaires on both the left and the right giving a lot of money, right? But the internet has changed, has encouraged people to make small donations.
Yeah.
And so like this last governor's race, both McAuliffe and Cuccinelli, they had, I think, what was it?
This is high.
It was like 80,000 donors.
Yeah.
Under $100 or less. In the previous high before that had been like 10,000. So it's a real explosion, and I mean, you could be suspicious to say, well, they're not putting a name to it. But I think what's really happening is that it's easier to give, and people are giving small amounts.
Yes.
$5, a couple, $10.
What would prevent, or how would we find out, say, if George Soros was
Right.
giving money to these supposedly, you just mentioned 80,000 people, getting $100 or $50 to all of them, using his bank account, could he do something like that and get away with it?
He did.
I mean, the old story, follow the money trail, and you
Right.
can find out what's going on.
Right.
I'm just throwing that scenario out.
So
I'd like your opinion on that.
Well, my opinion is, I don't know if that went on or not, but if it did, whether it was George Soros or whoever it was, the state does not have any audit provisions in what a candidate says. So if the candidate says this was, you know, if a $10,000 check came in and it says, oh, I got this from 8,000 donors, right? And there's no way for the State Board of Elections or anybody to go behind and say.
There's no audit.
There's no audit. There is no audit. So right now we're basically on an honor system in Virginia, and I'm not sure, there's not an audit in the federal, is there as well?
There's not a lot of honor in the federal.
If it is, they're not honoring it.
Right, so is that possible? You know, I guess it would be, and you know, so is it possible? Yes. Does it happen? I couldn't tell you.